The 394th meeting of the Committee on the Exercise of the Inalienable Rights of the Palestinian People is called to order. The agenda for this meeting is before the committee in document A/AC 183/2019/L.1. If I hear no objections, I shall consider it adopted. It is so decided. I now invite the committee to consider candidatures for the posts of chair, vice chairs, and rapporteur of the committee. The Secretariat of the committee has received the following candidatures: His Excellency Mr. Sheikh Nyang, Permanent Representative of Senegal, as chair. Her Excellency Ms. Adela Ras, Incoming Permanent Representative of Afghanistan, as vice chair. Her Excellency Ms. Ana Silva Rodrigues, Chargée d'Affaires of Cuba, as Vice Chair. His Excellency Mr. Dian Triancia Jani, Permanent Representative of Indonesia, as Vice Chair. His Excellency Mr. Neville Melvin Getze, Permanent Representative of Namibia, as Vice Chair. His Excellency Mr. Jaime Castillo Hermida, Permanent Representative of Nicaragua, as Vice Chair. His Excellency Mr. Carmelo Inguanes, Permanent Representative of Malta, as Rapporteur. Before we proceed with the election, I have been informed that the incoming Permanent Representative of Afghanistan, Ms. Adela Ras, will be taking up her post in New York in the coming weeks. Therefore, her election as Vice Chair would be deferred to the next meeting of the committee. I would also like to mention that the Permanent Representative of Malta is available to serve as Rapporteur until the 15th of May 2019. Are there any comments or questions? If there are no requests from the floor, I shall take it that the committee approves the proposal just made and unanimously elects His Excellency Mr. Sheikh Nyang, Permanent Representative of Senegal to the United Nations, as Chairman of the Committee of the Exercise of the Inalienable Rights of the Palestinian People. And I also take it that the committee unanimously elects as Vice Chairs Her Excellency Ms. Ana Silvia Rodrigues Abascal, Chargée d'Affaires of Cuba of the United Nations, His Excellency Mr. Dian Triancia Jani, Permanent Representative of Indonesia to the United Nations, His Excellency Mr. Neville Melvin Gertz, Permanent Representative of Namibia to the United Nations, and His Excellency Mr. Jaime Hermida Castillo, Permanent Representative of Nicaragua to the United Nations, and as Rapporteur of the committee, His Excellency Mr. Carmelo Inguanes, Permanent Representative of Malta to the United Nations. It is so decided. I now invite Ambassador Sheikh Nyang and His Excellency Ambassador Sheikh Nyang and His Excellency Ambassador Carmelo Inguanes to take their seats at the podium.
Start now. Excellence, Monsieur le Secrétaire.
Excellencies, Mr. Secretary General. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, ambassadors, dear colleagues. Madam Chef de Cabinet of the Secretary General. Mr. Undersecretary General for Political Affairs and Peacebuilding, distinguished delegates and guests. Mr. Secretary General, to the exact day, a year ago, we met in this same room to sacrifice to the duty of renewing the Bureau of the United Nations Committee for the Exercise of the Inalienable Rights of the Palestinian People. And here, once again, you pay us the honor of presiding over today's session. On behalf of the members of our committee as a whole, we'd like to heartily thank you. Your presence here with us reflects the ongoing United Nations commitment to a definitive solution to the Palestinian question based on international law and the relevant resolutions of our organization. Dear colleagues, by approving my re-election to the chairmanship of this committee above and beyond my humble person, it's to Senegal that you are renewing your confidence. And please accept my deep-seated feelings of gratitude. I would also like to reaffirm Senegal's commitment to pursue our efforts in order to bring about a Palestinian state which is sovereign, viable, and independent based on the 1967 borders with East Jerusalem as the capital. I'm also very pleased to warmly congratulate the other distinguished members of the Bureau for whom you have also renewed your confidence. And I would like to appoint my counterparts, ambassadors, the permanent representatives of Afghanistan, Cuba, Indonesia, Namibia, Nicaragua, and Malta. I know that I speak on behalf of all of you when I reiterate our collective commitment to work tirelessly to implement the mandate conferred upon us by the General Assembly, specifically through dialogue, concerted efforts, and awareness raising. May I also take this opportunity to commend the action of the Division of Palestinian Rights that is working with us in implementing this mandate and encourage it to pursue its efforts, specifically in implementing the training program, the goal of which is to contribute to capacity building for the Palestinian state. Thank you.
Now, turning on item 3 on the agenda, I have the distinct honor of giving the floor to Secretary General Antonio Guterres, whom I thank again on behalf of the committee for having taken the time to be among us. Mr. Secretary General, you have the floor.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, I'm honored to participate in your first meeting of the year, and I congratulate the Chair, Ambassador Sheikh Nyang, and other members of the Bureau on your election. And I commend your efforts and commitment towards a peaceful and just solution of the Palestinian question. This can only be achieved through realization of the vision of two states, Israel and Palestine, living side by side in peace and security, with Jerusalem as the capital of both states, based on relevant UN resolutions, long-held principles, previous agreements, and international law. Unfortunately, over this past year, the situation has not moved in that direction. Protests in Gaza resulted in hundreds dead and thousands wounded by Israeli security forces. And security incidents and provocations by Hamas and other militants in Gaza, including the launching of rockets and incendiary kites, dangerously escalated the situation. Thanks to UN and Egyptian mediation efforts, a major escalation was avoided. I appeal to Hamas authorities in Gaza to prevent provocations, and the international humanitarian law, Israel too, has a responsibility to exercise maximum restraint and to not use lethal force, except as foreseen in international law, as a last resort against imminent threat of death or serious injury. Ladies and gentlemen, the United Nations stands firmly in support of Palestinian reconciliation and the return of the legitimate Palestinian government to Gaza, and we welcome the efforts made by Egypt on this regard. Gaza is an integral part of a future Palestinian state, and Palestinian unity is needed for a politically stable, economically viable, sovereign and independent state of Palestine. The ongoing humanitarian crisis in Gaza must also be immediately addressed. Approximately 2 million Palestinians remain mired in increasing poverty and unemployment, with limited access to adequate health, education, water, and electricity. Young people see little prospect of a better future, and I urge Israel to lift restrictions on the movement of people and goods, which also hamper the efforts of the United Nations and other humanitarian agencies without naturally jeopardizing legitimate security concerns. The international community must also significantly increase efforts to revitalize Gaza's economy. I commend UNRWA for its critical work in Gaza, the occupied West Bank, including East Jerusalem, and across the region. And this is despite an unprecedented financial crisis in 2018. I thank those donors who have increased their commitments and enabled Palestinian refugees to continue to receive the essential services provided by UNRWA. And I ask them to maintain their support in the coming year and beyond. Ladies and gentlemen, there is also risk of further unrest in the West Bank. The construction and planning of settlements by Israel have expanded deeper into Area C in the West Bank, including in East Jerusalem, and settlements are illegal under international law. They deepen the sense of mistrust and undermine the two-state solution. Settler violence remains a very serious concern, and I was also shocked by the recent murder of an Israeli teenager, which has now been categorized as a terrorist act. I also regret the decision by Israel not to renew the mandate of the temporary international presence in Hebron. I hope an agreement can be found by the parties to preserve this long-standing and valuable arrangement. Excellencies, Palestinians have endured more than a half-century of occupation and denial of their legitimate right to self-determination. Israelis and Palestinians continue to suffer from deadly cycles of violence. Leaders have a responsibility to their populations, not least the youth, to reverse this negative trajectory and pave the way towards peace, stability, and reconciliation. I commend the committee for keeping the focus on the ultimate objective of a joint and peaceful solution with two states coexisting in peace and security. This is the only way to achieve the inalienable rights of the Palestinian people. And as I have said repeatedly, there is no plan B. Thank you.
I thank the Secretary General for his statement and the words of encouragement addressed to the committee. I would like to express our committee's sincere appreciation to you for your continued commitment to bringing peace between Palestine and Israel. Allow me now to make a statement in my capacity as chair of the committee to mark this first meeting of the committee in 2019. Excellence, Monsieur le Secrétaire Général.
Excellency, Mr. Secretary General, ladies and gentlemen. The parameters of a definitive solution to the Israeli-Palestinian dispute have been clearly identified and are known to all of the actors, and yet never has the political horizon been so uncertain. It has been 71 years since the adoption of Resolution 181 and a quarter of a century since the signature of the Oslo Accords, which were supposed to lead to self-determination and independence for the Palestinian people. And yet we have to recognize that the reality on the ground, in addition to being volatile, more and more looks like a one-state. And we would all agree, however, that only a definitive solution will make it possible to grapple with the formidable challenges of the Middle East beyond this matter, and which include, amongst other things, terrorism, extremism, violent extremism, poverty, and exclusion. Settlements, occupation, violence, incitation, this disastrous situation in Gaza, dissension amongst Palestinian politicians and actors, amongst others, are all factors which are undermining trust between the parties. Adoption of Resolution 2334 of the Security Council, which reaffirmed the illegal nature of settlement and occupation under international law, did not, however, stop continuing illegal settlements in the Palestinian territories, occupied territories, including East Jerusalem. It remains resolutely attached to a peaceful settlement to the Palestinian question, and the committee, however, condemns all forms of violence and incitation to hatred, regardless of who the authors or motivations were. In our view, the best way to foster conditions for lasting peace and security between Israelis and Palestinians is to renounce any form of violence and any policies based on the fait accompli, and to return to the negotiating table with a view to working towards a comprehensive solution which assigns each party the right to be a sovereign state. As to Jerusalem, we would appeal to respect the status quo while awaiting a definitive solution to this matter based on the final status, based on relevant resolutions of the United Nations, which is much more relevant with regard to developments on the ground. Moreover, despite the United Nations efforts and those of Egypt to preserve the very fragile ceasefire underway since 2014, the risk of a fourth military confrontation still exists in Gaza, where a resurgence of violence since last March has led to a very high number of victims, including children. All of this, with the uncertainty, continues as a background to the budgetary situation of the Office of the United Nations for Palestinian refugees in the Middle East, UNRWA. Also, our committee will continue to urge member states to pursue their efforts geared to guaranteeing the United Nations agency access to predictable, sufficient, and sustained resources, allowing it to implement its mandate for the benefit of millions of Palestinian refugees in the areas of education, health, humanitarian assistance, and sustainable development. Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Secretary General, it's true that 139 members of the United Nations to date have officially recognized the state of Palestine, and the result is the fruit of the efforts of the Palestinian authorities in their quest for a viable, independent, sovereign, legitimate state based on a peaceful approach and through negotiations. The time has come for concrete actions on behalf of the international community to reflect their commitment to a two-state solution as the only viable solution, because it would guarantee peace, security, independence, and sovereignty, both for Israelis and Palestinians. We must work in a spirit of multilateralism to put all pending issues on the table, such as the settlements, the status of Jerusalem, the refugees, security, and the situation in Gaza. Henceforth, we would invite actors such as the Quartet, the Security Council, and countries with influence in the region to work to relaunch this process based on existing platforms. And here I refer to the Quartet Roadmap, the Madrid Principles Declaration, the Oslo Agreements, the principle of Land Against Peace, and the Arab Peace Initiative, all with a view to endowing the Palestinian people with a sovereign state which is viable and independent within internationally guaranteed and recognized borders, living side by side with the State of Israel in peace and security. Thank you.
I now give the floor to His Excellency Mr. Riyad Mansour, Permanent Observer of the State of Palestine to the United Nations. You have the floor, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Allow me at the beginning to welcome the Secretary General for being with us and his senior staff, and also to thank him very much for his statement that he shared with us, in which he reiterated the well-known position of the United Nations and the SG himself, summed in one sentence that there is no plan B to the two-state solution. And we totally agree with him. A two-state solution on the basis of the well-known parameters, international law, UN relevant resolutions that would lead to the end of the occupation that started on 4th of June of 1967, and to the independence of the State of Palestine, with East Jerusalem as its capital, living in peace and tranquility next to the State of Israel and all other neighbors. We are committed to that objective, and we appreciate the work at the UN, the international community, the General Assembly, the Security Council, the Committee on the Exercise of the Inalienable Rights, and all other components of the United Nations for helping the Palestinian people to accomplish that objective. We believe in what the UN stands for. We believe in multilateralism. We believe in the collective approach to accomplish that lofty objective. Although things are becoming very complicated, very difficult, but nevertheless, we are not losing sight from what we should accomplish through peaceful methods. Allow me also, Mr. Chairman, to congratulate you and to congratulate other members of the Bureau for their re-election for another year. We are grateful to you for the outstanding work and effort during the course of the years, including last year, in promoting peace and justice for the Palestinian people, in promoting the right to self-determination and the attainment of the inalienable rights of the Palestinian people. We commend you for that effort and that work, and we pledge to you that we will continue working with you very closely to contribute to accomplish such noble objectives. We are, of course, also grateful to the work and assistance of the division for all the things that they provide to the committee and to the Bureau to allow them to accomplish the mandate extended to them through a General Assembly resolution. Of course, you know, this is not the time for me to give a long statement. I've been giving so many statements in so many different capacities, whether in the debate in the Security Council or whether in my capacity, the acquired new capacity as the chair of the Group of 77, and in many other cases, the G77 and China, which is a very very demanding responsibility, but we are trying to rise up to that occasion and to carry our duty in the best possible way. We totally agree with you, Mr. Secretary General, and also with the chairman of the committee, that there are certain objectives that we need to accomplish, and very soon. One of them is to put our house in order and to have reconciliation and to unify our political and system and geography because the split is not in the interest of the Palestinian people. And in this regard, we thank Egypt immensely for their outstanding effort to try to help us to accomplish reconciliation. We will continue to work very closely with all of our partners and our friends in the UN system, because we operate in the United Nations, to try to move peace forward. Our president, about a year ago, put on the table an initiative for opening door for peaceful efforts through a collective process by convening an international conference composed of many parties, in addition to the two most concerned parties, to include the UN, to include the 5 permanent members of the Security Council and others. And we believe that if we succeed collectively in moving in that direction, that would be a serious contribution from moving from the deadlock into opening doors for a meaningful process that will lead to the end of occupation and independence of our state, and therefore saving the two-state solution. We will double our efforts this year for that objective, and we are eager, to see some horizon, some hope, because without continuing to have hope, then our people will be moving from bad to worse. And we thank all those who give our people hope. In this regard, we commend the Secretary General and the Commissioner General for their outstanding work in the year 2018 in finding the needed resources to help UNRWA to accomplish its objective. The same subject is before us this year, and we need to give UNRWA sustainability in terms of resources so that we do not go from one cycle to another cycle of crisis in terms of finding resources for that fabulous agency that is catering to the needs of 5.5 million Palestinian refugees until we find a just political solution to the question of the refugees. Again, Mr. Chairman, congratulations. Mr. Secretary General, we will work with you very closely, and we appreciate all of your efforts, and hopefully, maybe on a brighter note this year, at a certain occasion, we would love to see you in the occupied Palestinian territory. I was honored when I visited with you Gaza less than 2 years ago, and I will be honored again to accompany you in visiting the land of the occupied state of Palestine, including the Gaza Strip. Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman.
I thank His Excellency Mr. Riyad Mansour for his important statement and his kind words of encouragement to the Bureau. We shall now suspend the meeting for a few minutes to allow, with the renewed expression of our gratitude, the Secretary General and his team to leave the room. We can start again our meeting. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, before we proceed with the agenda, allow me on behalf of the committee to welcome His Excellency Mr. Luis Benigno Alfredo Gallegos Chiriboga, Permanent Representative of Ecuador, and His Excellency Mr. Abdullah Ali Fadel Al-Sadi, Permanent Representative of Yemen to the United Nations, who have recently taken up their new assignments here in New York. On behalf of the committee, I would like to extend our welcome to you amongst the members and observers of this committee and express our best wishes for your important work here in New York. I'm certain that you will continue the excellent support the committee has received from your predecessors in pursuit of its mandates. Ladies and gentlemen, we shall now move to agenda item 4 on the agenda, the draft program of work of the committee, which is contained in document A/AC-183/2019/L2, which is before you, which was circulated by the Secretariat to all committee members for comments. I will briefly introduce the draft program to the committee. Section 1 outlines the mandates of the Committee and the Division for Palestinian Rights as contained in relevant resolutions of the GA adopted at the 73rd session. Section 2 enumerates the priority issues of the committee for 2019, including supporting multilateral efforts to end the occupation and reach a peaceful settlement of the question of Palestine, mobilizing international, regional, and national action to ensure the fulfillment of the inalienable rights of the Palestinian people, including independence and sovereignty of the State of Palestine on the basis of the pre-1967 lines and its admission to full membership to the United Nations. Supporting member states' efforts to implement relevant United Nations resolutions, including Security Council Resolution 2334/2016, and the obligation inter alia upon states to distinguish in the relevant dealings between the territory of the State of Israel and the territories occupied since 1967, including Jerusalem. Engaging Security Council members, regional groups, and other member states to advocate for the implementation of the long-standing parameters for peace in the Palestinian-Israeli conflict as reiterated in relevant UN resolutions and to support the work of the committee. Calling on the international community and civil society organizations to focus efforts on a political and human rights framework while ensuring needed assistance to the Palestinian people, in accordance with the legal obligations of all stakeholders and to the 2030 agenda. Advocating for the right to return and just compensation of the Palestinian refugees as provided for in paragraph 11 of General Assembly Resolution 1943, and for the support to UNRWA and its mandate. And finally, advocating for the end to the blockade of Gaza in conformity with international humanitarian law and relevant UN resolutions. Section 3 describes the planned activities of the committee and the division in 2019, which include meetings and conferences, publications, municipal and social media, Solidarity Day, as well as the capacity building program for Palestinian officials. The committee, supported by the division, will also continue to develop and enhance the capacity building program for the state of Palestine, inter alia, with a view to supporting the Palestinian government in its efforts to establish more efficient, accountable, and transparent institutions and implement the Agenda 2030 for Sustainable Development. Some key events planned this year include a committee delegation visit to the European Union and Belgium from the 4th to the 6th of March, a forum on the question of Palestine on 4th of April in New York, a conference on the question of Jerusalem with the OIC on 28 and 29 of June in Geneva, a seminar on legal aspects of the question of Palestine, tentatively planned in August or September, the commemoration of the International Day of Solidarity with the Palestinian people, which this year is planned on the 26th of November. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, we count on your active engagement in the successful implementation of the committee's program of work and realization of the mandate of this committee. I now open the floor for any comments you may have before we adopt the 2019 program of work. Are there any comments? If there are no comments, may I take it that the committee wishes to approve its program of work for 2019 as contained in document A/AC 183/2019 L2? It is so decided. Now I will turn to agenda item 5 on consideration of concepts for approved annual conferences, working papers number 1 and number 2. I would like to draw the committee's attention to 2 upcoming annual conferences. On the 4th of April, the committee will hold here in New York the United Nations Forum on the Question of Palestine under the theme, The Threat of De Facto Annexation, What Next for Palestine? The forum will be preceded by committee consultations with civil society on the 3rd of April. The concept note of the forum is before you. That's working paper number 1. On 27 and 28 of June, the committee will organize the International Conference on the Question of Jerusalem in Geneva under the theme, Preserving the Cultural and Religious Character of Jerusalem. The concept note of this activity can also be found in your folder. It's working paper number 2. Are there any questions or comments on these 2 activities? If there are no comments, I take it that the 2 concepts are approved. It's so decided. I now turn to item 6 of the agenda for a briefing by the representative of Amnesty International on the organization's latest report on Israeli settlements in the occupied Palestinian territory, titled Destination, Occupation Digital Tourism, and Israel's Illegal Settlements in the Occupied Palestinian Territories. The report will be presented by Mr. Laith Abu Zayed, an advocacy officer with Amnesty International, Amnesty International's Office for Israel, and the Occupied Palestinian Territory. Prior to joining Amnesty, Lev Abu Zayed worked for 2 years as International Advocacy Officer with Adamir, a Palestinian NGO working for the rights of prisoners. He previously worked at Al-Quds University Human Rights Clinic as a legal researcher. Mr. Abu Zayed will brief us by video conference from East Jerusalem. I invite Mr. Lev Abu Zayed to take the floor. You have the floor, sir.
Thank you, and thank you for giving us the opportunity to present the findings of our latest report. So this report is part of Amnesty's international campaign, which was launched on the 50th anniversary of the Israeli occupation. And the campaign made a new call on third states to ban settlement products from entering their markets, and also to stop companies domiciled in their territories from operating in Israeli settlements. So as part of this campaign, we decided to focus on the digital tourism industry. And the reason we decided to focus on them because corporates like Airbnb, Booking.com, Expedia, and TripAdvisor, which are mentioned in the report, dominate the multi-billion-dollar global online tourism industry and have become hugely successful. And the 4 companies that are mentioned in the report list different hotels, B&Bs, attractions, and tours in Israeli settlements, despite knowing that Israeli settlements are illegal under international law and also a war crime. And these companies also know that Israeli settlements have a negative impact on a vast number of the human rights of the Palestinian population. And this is why we decided to focus on these companies and also on tourism as such. And all of these 4 companies claim to operate under high ethical values and respect for the rule of law. However, none of these standards appear to influence the company's decisions in relation to listing in Israeli settlements. And also on doing business in settlements, all 4 companies are contributing to and also profiting from the maintenance, development, and expansion of illegal settlements, which, as I said before, amount to war crimes under international law. And they also contributing to sustaining an illegal situation, as well as a regime that's inherently discriminatory and abusive of the human rights of Palestinians. And the reason we also decided to focus on tourism is because Israel last year received more than 4 million tourists, which was a record number, and 45% of them visited areas in the West Bank. So they either visited the Dead Sea or East Jerusalem. So we're speaking about almost less than 2 million tourists that visited the West Bank, which is a very high number. So we can imagine the amount of money or the financial gains that the Israeli government is making, but also these companies that are operating in Israeli settlements. And Israel provides so a range of financial incentives to businesses working across a range of sectors, and especially those that operate in Israeli settlements, including those online tourism companies. And as well as the financial gains that the Israeli government has, the government has other political and ideological reasons for developing tourism industry in the West Bank. For example, when we did the research, we realized that many of the settlements were built next to archaeological sites, which are listed on these online tourism companies, in order to sort of like make the link between the modern state of Israel and the Jewish history more explicit, and in order to justify the takeover of the land in the West Bank. So these, the 4 companies named in the report. So Airbnb, for example, had more than 200 listings in the West Bank and more than 100 listings in East Jerusalem. Booking.com had 45 hotels, and we're speaking about big hotels with 50 rooms. And Expedia had also a number of accommodation also listed in Israeli settlements, and TripAdvisor had more than 70 different attractions, tours, restaurants, and cafes that are also listed in Israeli settlements. So sort of like to examine how digital tourism companies directly or indirectly contribute to human rights violations, we visited 5 different settlements and 5 different neighboring Palestinian communities. So we did interviews with them, and some of these communities that we researched is first Khan al-Ahmar, and the settlement next to it is Kfar Adumim. And I think, as most of you already know, that Khan al-Ahmar the community is at risk of being forcibly transferred by the Israeli authorities in the West Bank, while at the same time companies are listing properties in the settlements that's next to it. And the next case study is Shiloh, which is a settlement in the West Bank, and two Palestinian villages next to it are called Qaryut and Jalud. And these and that area has been described by several Israeli NGOs as the hotspot for settlers' attacks. So often residents of these communities suffer from attacks by Israeli settlers that live in those settlements, while at the same time these companies are also listing accommodations and tourist attractions in the settlement of Shiloh. And the third case study is Susia and Khilbit Susia. Susia is in the south of Hebron, and also the community is also at risk of being evacuated and forcibly transferred. And the next to that area is an archaeological site that's also being promoted on these online tourism companies' websites. And then the fourth case study is Silwan and City of David. So also residents of Silwan suffer from home demolitions and several other human rights violations, such as adequate housing and adequate standard of living, while some of these companies like TripAdvisor are acting as a booking agent for the City of David, which is a tourist attraction in East Jerusalem. And the fifth case study is Hebron, which is also well known for settler violence and also discrimination that exists in that city. We're speaking about also a variety or a wide range of rights that are violated, such as the right of security of the person, health, freedom of movement, and other rights as well. So these were the 5 case studies examined in the report. And then at the end of the report, we have our recommendations for the companies are to delist immediately from Israeli settlements, including East Jerusalem, and also to provide compensations for those Palestinian communities that have been affected by these settlements. And then our recommendations for countries is that countries, they must regulate, take actions to regulate and to ensure that these digital tourism companies that are named in the report do not operate in Israeli settlements and do not promote settlers' tourism services in the OPT. And while the report focuses on tourism and tourism companies, but this is just an example of the kind of companies that are operating in settlements, while there are also a wide range of other companies, and not including the tourism companies that also work in Israeli settlements as well, and also making financial gains by contributing to human rights violations. And at the end, we're hoping and we're asking states also to push for the release of the UN database, and in order to help states in ensuring that companies domiciled in their own territories do not operate in Israeli settlements or do business with settlements. So this is basically the report and the recommendations of it. And of course, ahead of the release of the report, we contacted 5 of the companies. Only 2 of them responded, and the response was not sufficient. So Booking.com and Expedia said that they're not aware of any legal obligations, and the rest of the companies did not even respond. So we're currently starting with the advocacy phase in order, hopefully, to pressure these companies to leave Israeli settlements and to delist immediately. Thank you.
I thank Mr. Laith Abu Zaid for his participation in our meeting and the important briefing on a crucial issue, which is a major obstacle to peace and for the achievement of the two-state solution. I invite committee members and observers to take note of the information Mr. Abu Zaid has just shared with us. I would just ask Mr. Zayed if he can send us a written summary of his briefing I think that would be very, very useful for us. And are there any comments or questions on the briefing we just heard for Mr. Zaid to respond to? Mr. Zaid, I think your briefing has been very convincing. And since there are no further comments, I would like to express the committee's appreciation to Amnesty International for the important work it's carrying out. Is there someone? There's someone?
Mr. Zayed wants to say something.
Okay. You want to say something, Mr. Zaid?
No, I'm good.
Do you want to say something?
No.
No. Okay. So thank you for your participation and thank you for the time you have taken to talk to us. And we are looking forward to remaining in touch with you. Thank you.
Thanks.
Turning to item 7 of the agenda, I would like now to inform you about recent and upcoming activities of the committee that have relevance for our work in 2019, particularly those that have taken place in the context of and since its last meeting on the 28th of November 2018. First, in the afternoon of 28th of November 2018, the committee held closed consultations with civil society organizations from Palestine, Israel, and the US. Participants recommended that the committee should engage with Israel and Palestine, take up the plight of the Arab minority within Israel, engage the Israeli public to raise awareness on the situation in the OPT, as well as on its cost for the Jewish Israeli population, engage the G77 and China and the non-aligned movement on concrete measures to address the Palestinian plight, and highlight cross-cutting issues such as climate change in support of the Palestinian people. Second, in response to an invitation from the London-based Palestinian Refugee Center, in my capacity as chair of this committee, I participated in a series of events and meetings in London from the 11th to the 14th of December 2018. The overall goal of the mission included informing about the activities of the committee, raising awareness about the situation in the occupied Palestinian territory, and meeting with different interlocutors to receive valuable inputs that would allow the committee to be more effective in implementing its mandate. Allow me to share some details of my engagement. On 12 December, I attended a roundtable discussion with a dozen of UK charities at the Christian Aid headquarters. The discussions reflected the deep commitment of civil society in the UK and focused on settlements, human rights violations, Jerusalem, the Gaza blockade, and the deepening divide between Palestinians and Israelis, living so close and yet so apart. The discussions also highlighted the need to raise awareness and educate the British public, work in close collaboration with the Labour Party, and facilitate coordination among the many NGOs active in the country. On the 3rd of December, I participated in an event marking the 70th year of the adoption of UN Resolution 194 in the UK Parliament. Discussing the resolution, I shared the platform with Mrs. Ruth Cadbury, a Labour MP, Mrs. Karma Nabulsi, professor at Oxford University, Mrs. Frances Weber, Vice Chair of the UK Institute for Race Relations. In my intervention, I reaffirmed that the Palestinian question has always been high on the UN agenda, as evidenced by countless resolutions, such as resolutions 194, 181, and 184. I also recalled the 8-point plan outlined before the Security Council by President Mahmoud Abbas in February 2018, emphasizing the need to rekindle the international movement of solidarity with the Palestinian people. The same day, I participated in a public lecture at SOS University. I reminded the audience that there is no alternative but to remain engaged in pushing for the implementation of international law and relevant UN resolutions until our Palestinian friends can enjoy the benefits and privileges of a sovereign state and reinstatement of all the inalienable rights. Overall, it was a successful mission, especially in the context of being able to listen to outside perspectives and fresh ideas on how to move forward on the Palestinian question. It is indeed my view that, as a committee, we should do more of such activities that can contribute to the much needed and better understanding of this issue among political leaders and the public at large, and counter the cynicism and misperception about the UN and its committee. On the 22nd of January, the Security Council held an open debate on the situation in the Middle East, including the Palestinian question. In the statement delivered on behalf of the committee by Ambassador Ana Yancy Rodriguez Camejo, permanent representative of Cuba and vice chair of the committee urged the Security Council to make 2019 a year of action and progress on the road to achieving a just and lasting peace and the full realization of the inalienable rights of the Palestinian people. The election of the State of Palestine as chair of the G77 in China was also highlighted as a significant development that we all celebrate. The full text of the statement is available on UNISPAL site that can be accessed at www.un.org/UNISPAL. Turning now to upcoming activities, I would like to inform you about upcoming events. On the 23rd of February, the division will organize its annual briefing session for delegates. On the 26th of February, the division will organize its annual briefing session for delegates on the mandate and work of the committee and the division. The briefing will take place at 3 p.m. in conference room 5. I encourage all delegates, particularly those new to the UN headquarters, to take advantage of this useful briefing. More information will be shared separately by the division. On the 1st and the 2nd of March, I will attend the 46th meeting of the Council of Foreign Ministers of the OIC, which will take place in Abu Dhabi, United Arab Emirates. From the 4th to the 6th of March, I will lead a committee delegation visit to the European Union and Belgium. The delegation will include His Excellency Mrs. Ana Silva Rodriguez, Chargée d'Affaires of Cuba, His Excellency Mr. Carmelo Inguarez, permanent representative of Malta and rapporteur of the committee, His Excellency Mr. Neville Melvin Geddes, permanent representative of Namibia and vice chair, Mr. Nazifullah Salarzai, Chargé d'Affaires of Afghanistan, His Excellency Mr. Riyad Mansour, permanent observer of the State of Palestine, also who will be part of the delegation. This visit will focus first on enhancing diplomatic and political support of the European Union and Belgium for the recognition of the State of Palestine, and second, on engaging local and regional solidarity movements to influence their parliamentarians and other institutions to promote achievement by the Palestinian people and of their inalienable rights. On the 7th of March, on the margin of the Commission of the Status of Women, CSW, we will organize a side event featuring the screening of a documentary film titled Naila and the Uprising. It will be followed by a discussion with some of the protagonists and other panelists. The film focuses on the role of Palestinian women during the First Intifada. I encourage all members and observers of the committee to save the date and participate in this important event. More information will be shared separately by the division. We'll now move on to the agenda item number 8, updates by members and observers of the committee on the activities relating to the question of Palestine. I would now like to invite delegations who want to share any update to take the floor. I recognize the ambassador of Ecuador. You have the floor, sir.
Muchas gracias.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. I'd like to start by recognizing the presence of the Secretary General in this first meeting of the Special Committee and his encouraging message, which bolsters this committee's work, supporting its work in the defense of the inalienable rights of the Palestinian people. We also commend the re-election of the members of the Bureau of the Committee on the Inalienable Rights of the Palestinian People. And here I'm referring especially to you, Mr. Ambassador, from Senegal, to whom we'd like to thank for your generous words and your welcome. I'd also like to recognize Ambassador from Malta, as the rapporteur of the committee, and the ambassadors of Afghanistan, Cuba, Indonesia, Namibia, and the ambassador of Nicaragua as members of the Bureau. In recent months, a number of events have taken place which invite us to look at the long-dated commission with regard to the Palestinian-Israeli conflict and support for peace. Indeed, more than 70 years have elapsed since we've been seeking peace in the Middle East, and we believe that it's time to finish efforts to achieve this. A two-state solution for two people, one Arab, one Jewish, side by side in peace, with mutual recognition and full rights for their respective citizens, and completing the mandate issued by the Secretary General, and compliance with the resolution on the Palestine question adopted by the General Assembly. All of that allow me to reference, Mr. Secretary General, there is no other plan, there is no plan B. It's necessary to settle the solution. It's fundamental for our organization to comply with the resolution of 1947, and that's why the year 2019 should be the year of peace, the year in which the Palestinian peoples have their rights returned to them and recognition of an independent state of Palestine and joining the United Nations as a full-fledged member. It needs to be prepared to face the new challenges that current situations impose and support a credible political process with a view to putting an end to the crisis in the Middle East, which is exacerbated at this point in time. Thank you.
I thank the ambassador, permanent representative of Ecuador, for his very strong statement. Thank you, and welcome once again to the committee. I now give the floor to the distinguished representative of Tunisia. I can't see him here. You have the floor, sir.
Merci, Monsieur le Président.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Ali,
I would like to thank the Secretary General of the United Nations for his commitment to the Palestinian question. I would like to congratulate the Permanent Representative of Senegal for being re-elected as chair of the Committee on the Exercise of the Inalienable Rights of the Palestinian People. And I would like to congratulate all members of the Bureau, and I wish them all the best in carrying out their responsibilities in defense of the just Palestinian question. Tunisia supports the program of work for 2019 and welcomes the holding of the UN Forum in New York and the International Conference in Geneva. I would like to thank those who drafted the program of work and the documents, especially the Division for Palestinian Rights. Regarding item 8, on the updates by members and observers of the committee on their activities relating to the question of Palestine, we would like to state the following. The President of Tunisia, on the 10th of this month, participated in the 32nd regular session of the Heads of State of Government of the African Union in Addis Ababa, during which he met the President of Palestine. The meeting allowed the President of Tunisia to stress Tunisia's commitment and solidarity with the Palestinian people in defense of its just cause in all international forums. The President welcomed the visit by the Palestinian President to participate in the upcoming Arab Summit to be held next month, stressing that the Palestinian question will be a priority for the summit and a priority for Arab action. Tunisia will spare no effort to support international and regional efforts to end the stalemate so that the Palestinian question would be once again a priority for the international community. On the 1st of February, the President of Tunisia welcomed the advisor to the Palestinian question, to the Palestinian President, the two parties discussed the relations between Tunisia and Palestine. The President also welcomed the Palestinian ambassador to discuss the situation in Palestine and the need to use the upcoming Arab Summit to give further impetus to the Palestinian question. The head of the office of the Foreign Ministry visited Palestine and delivered an official message to the Palestinian president, inviting him to participate in the Arab Summit. As part of the fifth summit, or the fifth session of the European Arab meeting in Brussels, and in a statement delivered then, the representative of the Foreign Ministry stressed the need to find a solution to the Palestinian question in order to preserve regional peace and security. He called for the resumption of negotiations to reach peace in a manner to allow the Palestinian people to enjoy its rights, including the establishment of its own independent state. The Tunisian delegation to New York expressed its intention to support all initiatives in solidarity with the Palestinian question, which allowed for the adoption of a number of resolutions on the matter at the General Assembly. The delegation also participated in a number of activities which accompanied the election of Palestine as head of the group of G7 of 77 in China. Tunisia will continue to participate in the activities of the Committee on the Exercise of the Inalienable Rights of the Palestinian People, and we wish the chair and the members of the Bureau all success in their noble task. Thank you.
Je remercie le distingué.
I'd like to thank the distinguished representative of Tunisia for that update. It was a very important one, and I'd like to take this opportunity to commend the Tunisian government for those initiatives for the Palestinian cause.
The ambassador, permanent representative of Bangladesh. You have the floor, sir.
Thank you, Chair, for giving me the floor. At the outset, I would like to congratulate you and members of the Bureau of this important committee for your re-election today. We witnessed flagrant violation of basic rights of fellow Palestinians by the occupying power Israel throughout 2018, and it still continues in front of the whole world. We appreciate the good work the committee has been doing to fulfill its mandate, particularly its outreach activities. It is very important to build awareness to further strengthen the political support of the international community for the cause of Palestine. And we feel this August committee and the UN at large have a lot more steps to take to stop this violence and ensure peace in the region. We have taken note of the work the committee has planned for this year, and we would extend our full support in this regard. Bangladesh, from its constitutional obligation, fully supports the rights of the Palestinian people. We have remained vocal in favor of the rights of the Palestinian people in our capacity as the chair of the OIC Council of Foreign Ministers in different forums, and also here in New York in relevant meetings of the Security Council and the General Assembly. It may be recalled that the OIC and the Arab League jointly requested the President of the General Assembly for convening the resumed 10th emergency session in last July, following the deteriorated situation in the occupied Palestinian territory. Further, OIC voiced strongly in favor of Palestinians in yearly consideration of UNRWA and Israeli practices by the General Assembly. In our national capacity, last year, despite being a developing country, Bangladesh for the first time contributed $50,000 to UNRWA, which has been facing tremendous funding crisis. This was out of our unequivocal commitment of our political leadership to the rights of the Palestinians. We believe that for achieving a lasting peace for the people and the state of Palestine, timely implementation of the relevant UN resolutions, the roadmap, the Arab peace plan, and the efforts made by the Quartet are of paramount importance. We must resume the peace process without any further delay. there is no alternative of a viable two-state solution with East Jerusalem as the capital of Palestine. We urge all concerned to be pragmatic in their approach and work together hand in hand for the establishment of an independent homeland for the Palestinian people where they can live in peace and in dignity side by side with their neighbors. Before concluding, Mr. Chair, we wish the newly formed Bureau under your able leadership would continue leading this important committee in its endeavor as per its mandate. And I thank you.
I would like to thank the distinguished representative of Bangladesh for his statement and renew our thanks and congratulations to your government for the continued support and your engagement in serving the Palestinian cause. Thank you. I now give the floor to the distinguished representative of Indonesia.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. My delegation would like to congratulate you and the member of the Bureau upon your election today. Ambassador Rajani expresses his regret for not being able to be here today due to the Council's mission, Council mission visit. Ambassador Rajani expresses his appreciation to all members of the committee for the trust and support accorded to him. Indonesia membership to the committee is not only a reflection of its traditional commitment to Palestinian people, but also a clear and solid manifestation of its strengthened contribution to the cause of the Palestine. Mr. Chairman, Indonesia continues to prioritize the question of Palestine in its foreign policy. Indonesia Minister of Foreign Affairs attended the first UNSC Open Debate on the Middle East last month, where she reaffirmed our commitment toward the two-state solution. She also called for full attention towards humanitarian situation faced by Palestinians, including the 7 years blockade of Gaza. In response to the recent termination of the mandate of the temporary international presence in Hebron by the occupying force, Kuwait and Indonesia have proposed a draft press statement by the Security Council, but was rejected by one member of the Council. It is regrettable that the Council could not express its position on such important matter. The occupying power is exploiting the Council's inability to shoulder its responsibility. The termination is an incident where the Council must respond. It is a violation of Resolution 2334, 2016, in which both parties are called upon not to make provocative measures or inflammatory rhetoric that would trigger conflicts and violence. Indonesia also regrets that the idea of visits that is on the table for decades was also rejected. Palestine may be the only state in the dossier of the Council that has never received any visit from the Council. Indonesia, Kuwait, and South Africa, which are members of the CEIRPP and other members of the Council, will keep trying to realize this visit. Thank you, Chair.
I thank the distinguished representative of Indonesia and renew our thanks to your government for its support to the mission of the committee. I now have the pleasure to give the floor to the Ambassador, Deputy Permanent Representative of South Africa. You have the floor, sir.
Thank you, Chairperson. Chairperson, at the outset, let me congratulate you and as the chairperson as well as the members of the Bureau for your re-election. And you can count on support of South African support and cooperation. We would like to express our profound appreciation to the Secretary General, Antonio Guterres, for his invaluable remarks that he made earlier this morning. The SG's unwavering commitment towards the promotion of just and peaceful settlement to the Israel-Palestinian conflict is commendable. Likewise, we appreciate the informative briefing made by the Amnesty International. The briefing and interactive discussion that follows has highly enriched our understanding of the challenges and opportunities facing the people of Palestine. Mr. Chairperson, we welcome the program of work of the committee that we have just adopted, which is in line with the objective and principle of the committee. We call upon all member states to support the committee's work and activities this session, including through the upcoming New York Forum to be held on the 4th of April 2019. Looking back in the past year, South Africa continued to engage actively to the work and activities of this committee. Furthermore, Mr. Chairperson, apart from South Africa's strong political support to the Palestinian cause at the multilateral and bilateral levels, South Africa, through the African Renaissance Fund, contributed in March 2018 $1 million to the United Nations Relief and Works Agency, UNWA, in support of humanitarian assistance to the women and children in Gaza, Palestine. South Africa welcomed recent pledges made to support UNWA, and we affirm this humanitarian support creates the condition that could one day assist the full-fledged self-determination and ultimately prosperity of the Palestinian people. At the national level, our government also regularly expresses public support for the rights of Palestinian people and speak out against the hostility, adversity, and other humanitarian challenges and crises that they are facing on a daily basis. Mr. Chairperson, I wish to reiterate South Africa's position in support of the two-state solution. We will also reiterate that primarily responsibility for peace rests with the Palestinian and Israelis themselves. We, as part of the international community, should support and encourage the parties towards this endeavor. Dialogue and negotiation remain the only way forward to finding a lasting solution. The guidelines for these negotiations have to be based on the already established international legal frameworks, which include United Nations General Assembly and Security Council resolution, the Madrid Principle, the Arab Peace Plan, and the Quartet Roadmap, to name but a few. Lastly, Mr. Chairperson, generations of Palestine and Israelis have known only conflict and violence. We must also do all we can now to create a culture of peace and to foster hope for future free of conflict for both sides. I thank you, Chair.
I thank the Ambassador, Deputy Representative of South Africa, for his update, which highlights the continued contribution of his country in support of the Palestinian people with very praiseworthy concrete contributions. So thank you and congratulations to your government. Now I have the pleasure to give the floor to the Ambassador, Chargé d'Affaires of Cuba. You have the floor, Madam.
Gracias, señor presidente.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'd like to begin, if I may, by expressing our full acknowledgement to the Secretary General for his presence here with our committee, which shows the ongoing support of the Secretary General to our body and to the Palestinian cause, which is a long-standing conflict which every day impacts peace and security internationally more. And the main immediate victims are the sister nation and people of Palestine. We'd also like to extend our congratulations to you, Ambassador Sheikh Nayak, for your re-election at the helm of the Bureau of this committee, and we'd like to congratulate the Ambassador of Nicaragua, Indonesia, Namibia, for the confidence entrusted in you by the committee as vice chairs of this body. And we'd like to extend congratulations to our dear Ambassador from Malta for his very positive work as a rapporteur for us, which definitely merited a re-election. Thank you. As to Cuba, the responsibilities of this committee, and in being elected as a vice chair, I would like to express my deep recognition and appreciation to all the members for their expressions of support to me. I receive this responsibility as a commitment to continue working from our position in the committee and in the United Nations to ensure progress towards a true peace process so that the Palestinian people can exercise their inalienable rights, including the right to self-determination without external interference, the right to independence and national sovereignty, and the right to return to their homes and properties from which they have been ejected. It's only been a year, barely have started the year, and there's no prospects for improvement. The situation in the Middle East, especially the Israeli-Palestinian conflict, does not show any progress towards the fair cause of the Palestinian people. To the contrary, the situation on the ground continues to unravel. In December of 2017, we received the decision in the United States government to put the embassy in Jerusalem and recognize it as the capital of Israel, which is a flagrant breach of the United Nations Charter, international law, and relevant United Nations resolutions. It's also alarming to see the U.S. decision to withdraw its financial support from UNRWA for the Palestinian refugees in the Middle East, with very grave consequences for the Palestinian people. Our country will continue actively participating in all Security Council debates on this matter and calling on the Security Council to fulfill its responsibilities as conferred upon it by the Charter for peacekeeping and international security. It's very regrettable that the Security Council, due to reiterated instructions of the United States, has not even condemned the escalation of violence and the tragic events in Gaza since the 30th of March 2018. For our part, we reiterate the energetic rejection of the use of disproportionate force and indiscriminate use of force by Israel against Palestinian civilians in the occupied territories, including East Jerusalem, and specifically in Gaza. It's a flagrant violation of the United Nations Charter and international humanitarian law. To our colleagues in the committee, and especially to our Palestinian brothers and sisters, we reiterate that we will never stop supporting a broad, lasting, and fair solution to the Israeli-Palestinian conflict based on a two-state solution that allows the Palestinians to enjoy the right to self-determination and to have an independent and sovereign state with the capital in East Jerusalem and with the pre-1967 borders. Thank you.
Dear colleague, I would like once again to welcome you again in the Bureau, and we are looking forward to having more interaction with you in the course of the year. And also I thank you for your statement, which is very strong and unwavering as usual, and we commend and congratulate the government of Cuba for that. Now I give the floor to the distinguished deputy representative of Namibia. You have the floor, madam.
Thank you very much. Mr. Chairman, allow me to join others to congratulate you for being re-elected as the chair of the Bureau of the Committee on the Exercise of the Inalienable Rights of the Palestinian People. Allow me to also express my appreciation to you, Mr. Chairperson, for your great efforts in steering the committee last year. My delegation stands ready to support your chairmanship, especially in our role as the vice chair for this year. And I indeed appreciate the support bestowed to Namibia, once again, on assuming this position with huge responsibility. Equally, I wish to congratulate Afghanistan, Cuba, Indonesia, Nicaragua for being re-elected as vice chairs, and Malta as the rapporteur. I commend the hard, productive work of the members of the committee under the support and guidance of the Secretariat of the Division of Palestinian Rights and its able team. We thank the Secretary General of the United Nations, His Excellency Antonio Guterres, for convening this meeting and for his statement of support for the committee and the vital work it conducts. Mr. Chairperson, my delegation welcomes the adoption of the program of work for 2019, which highlights the mandate of the committee, which includes to continue applying all efforts to promote the realization of the inalienable rights of the Palestinian people, including the right to self-determination and to support the achievement of an end to the Israeli occupation and for the two-state solution on the basis of the pre-1967 lines, without further delay. We recognize the importance of the priority issues set out in the draft program and welcome the proposed actions to be taken by the committee this year. Among the issues that remain a concern and priority to my delegation are A, lack of action by Israel to implement the all-important Resolution 2334 of 2016. B, the settlement expansion and demolition and seizure of Palestinian properties. C, the status of Jerusalem, which the 71st session General Assembly resolution reaffirmed that, and I quote, Israel is a final status issue to be resolved through negotiations in line with relevant UN resolutions. And D, secure and stable funding for UNRWA. We believe that the upcoming events, including the committee's visit to Belgium in March, UN forums, as well as international conferences and seminars to be held on the question of Palestine during the course of the year, will be of particular importance and value to the work of the committee. Through these engagements and the essential work conducted, my delegation believes that the committee will continue to raise awareness and ensure that the Palestinian cause remains at the forefront of the issues that need to be addressed and urgently resolved in 2019. The two-state solution on the basis of the 1967 borders is the only viable solution to this drawn-out conflict, one in which Palestinian people are able to exercise their inalienable rights in an independent state of Palestine, with Jerusalem as its capital and as rightful member of the United Nations and its specialized agencies. To conclude, I reiterate our thanks and appreciation, as well as our commitment and obligations toward enhancing the work of the committee and promoting the committee's agenda. Thank you.
Thank you. Namibia has always been a very active and strong member of our committee and of the Bureau, and your statement just reflects that, your engagement, your commitment. So I thank you for that statement and congratulate your government for its support. I now give the floor to the Deputy Permanent Representative of the OIC. You have the floor, sir.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. And please allow me at the outset to congratulate you for being re-elected as chair of the committee and to congratulate Their Excellencies, the permanent representatives of the countries members of the Bureau of the Committee, Afghanistan, Cuba, Indonesia, Malta, Namibia, and Nicaragua, who have been elected today, and for the confidence entrusted in you and in the rest of the Bureau members. We appreciate the excellent work the committee is doing, and we extend our full support to the committee and its work to implement its mandate. Please allow me to brief the committee on some of the activities implemented by the OIC in support of the Palestinian people. I have 5 or 6 things that the OIC implemented recently, and I will start from the seminar that we held at the General Secretariat upon an initiative by the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia. The seminar was on the Jewish state law. It was attended by the diplomatic community in Jeddah, and the diplomats also attended from Riyadh. Legal experts were there for the whole day. On just 2 weeks ago, the OIC held a cultural festival in Cairo, and the theme was Palestine in our hearts. Jerusalem was a major component of that cultural event. The fund for Palestine refugees is being established, and it is progressing. Now the statute is almost done and finished, and hopefully in 2 weeks things will be approved by the OIC ministerial meeting in Abu Dhabi, and hopefully after that the fund will be operational and will be part of the Islamic Development Bank, which will be in charge of the fundraising for the fund. Last month, also, the Islamic Solidarity Fund, which is part of the OIC, approved assistance to several Palestinian NGOs as part of the capacity building for Palestinian NGOs in several domains, ranging from youth-serving organizations to advocacy groups and educational institutions. The OIC Secretary General also sent letters to the states which expressed their intentions to relocate their embassies from Tel Aviv to Jerusalem, and he contacted a number of them. We are also looking forward to working with you, with the committee and with the division on organizing the 6th version of the annual joint conference on Jerusalem next June in Geneva. Please allow me to thank you again for giving me the chance to brief the committee, and we have confidence that the committee, under your able leadership, will continue its fabulous work, and you can count again on our support. Thank you so much.
I thank the distinguished representative of the OIC, and I would like to once again recognize and salute the unwavering support of your organization, not only to the Palestinian people itself, but also to our committee. And we are partners, and you are playing your role admirably, and we are looking forward to more interaction with you. And we thank you for what you have done for funding programs and being engaged. And we are looking forward to that cooperation with you. Thank you, sir. The last speaker on my list is the distinguished representative of Nicaragua. Sir, you have the floor.
Muchas gracias.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. We would like to congratulate you on your re-election as chair and of the committee and head of the Bureau. And we also would like to congratulate the other members of the Bureau that were re-elected to continue fighting for this cause, the inalienable rights of the Palestinian people, a cause that brings us together with much historical commitment. For Nicaragua, of course, it's an honor to once again have received your vote of confidence and be re-elected as a member of the Bureau. We believe that our peoples, Palestinian and Nicaraguan people, share solidarity and historical fraternity, mutual cooperation, and many areas of common ground economically. We have always been firmly committed to the Palestinian cause, and with this re-election, we reaffirm our desire to continue working for and defending the inalienable rights of the Palestinian people, the creation of a Palestinian state with borders pre-1967 and with East Jerusalem as the capital. We would like to extend a revolutionary, firm embrace to our Palestinian brothers and sisters with the certainty that this committee will continue to strengthen the ties that unite us, and especially the Sandinista revolution, which historically has been part of our commitment, and we will continue fighting for a Palestinian state, something we all dream of. Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman.
I would like to thank the distinguished representative of Nicaragua and thank his country for its continued support. And traditionally, Nicaragua has been very active also in the committee, and we are looking forward to more of your intervention and positive input in the work of the committee and of the Bureau. J'ai à présent le plaisir de...
It is now my pleasure to give the floor to the last speaker, the distinguished representative of Morocco, and this is a new speaker on our list.
أود في البداية أن أهنئكم.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. First and foremost, I'd like to commend you on your re-election to the head of our committee on the exercise of the inalienable rights of the Palestinian people. And we also commend the members of the Bureau. Morocco continues to support this committee. His Majesty, the King, expressed this in a letter to the exercise of the Committee on the Exercise of the Inalienable Rights of the Palestinian People. So we believe that we should respect the 1967 borders with Jerusalem as capital. We commend the work programme for this year, in particular for greater awareness raising of this issue, in particular vis-à-vis the two-state solution. This is a solution that should take place. There is no replacement to this. This is in line with the Arab Initiative and the Madrid Principles. We commend what the Secretary General said today, that the two-state solution is the only and unique solution. Morocco also supports the inhabitants of Jerusalem through projects that we finance. Here I note the meeting that took place in Morocco in June. It is a meeting that was extremely successful. I'd also like to mention other meetings, in particular between the foreign minister with the President Mahmoud Abbas. And this was on the sidelines of the 73rd General Assembly session. Thank you very much indeed.
Je voudrais remercier.
I would like to thank the distinguished representative of Morocco for that statement. And once again, I am delighted with Morocco's commitment. You talked about the meetings that were organized for the Palestinian cause, and that reflects that. And that was on the initiative of His Majesty King Mohammed VI. And we would really like to commend Morocco for its ongoing assistance and support.
I have not seen any more requests for the floor under agenda item number 8. So we are now going to move on to the last item of the agenda, which is other matters. Are there any matters to be raised by any delegation here? If there are no other matters to be discussed, I will adjourn the meeting. The meeting is adjourned.